Ohio Senate candidate J.D. Vance thinks that women that are in abusive relationships should stay in those relationships for the kids. For the kids. So now he was talking to the Pacific Christian High School in California. This was in September, but this is recently unearthed footage by Vice. And in this speech or conversation, I should say, Vance was asked by a moderator about why men are giving up on fatherhood. And somehow he turns this around to be the women's fault.
Culturally, something has clearly shifted. I mean, I think it's easy, but also probably true to blame the sexual revolution in the 1960s. You know, my grandparents had an incredibly chaotic marriage in a lot of ways, but they never got divorced, right? They were together to the end, till death do us part. That was a really important thing to my grandmother and my grandfather. I was personally, and a lot of the kids in my community grew up in my generation, personally suffered from the fact that a lot of moms and dads saw marriage as a basic contract, right? Like any other business deal, once it becomes no longer good for one of the parties or both of the parties, you just dissolve it and go on to a new business relationship. But that recognition that marriage was sacred, I think, was a really powerful thing that held a lot of families together. And when it disappeared, unfortunately, a lot of kids suffered. And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, you know, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages. And
So look, there's a lot here to dissect, okay? So let me just start on him blaming the sexual revolution. Hey, you know what another name for that is? It's basically when women got reproductive rights. Birth control has not been legal for that long, only since 1965, thanks to Griswold v. Connecticut. It wasn't legal before then in all the states, in the entire country. In some places, sure. Now, Vance is saying, oh, women and men being able to control when they have children, it's really wrecking marriages. Oh, man. So, another thing that Vance is blaming is women being able to make economic decisions for themselves. Along with family planning, women in the 1960s also gained the right to open their own bank account. Again, we have not had that. Women have not had that right for that long. Honestly, that's insane. In 1974, by the way, it took till then for the Equal Credit Opportunity Act to pass. Now, that was there to prohibit credit discrimination on the basis of gender. Before its passage, many banks granted credit cards to women only with their husband's signatures and outright refused to issue them to unmarried women. They couldn't get credit, they couldn't get loans, they couldn't get cars, they couldn't get home loans, they couldn't get any of that stuff. Which means that they were under the thumb. If they wanted any of that stuff, they had to be married. They had to be married. So what we had prior to the sexual revolution of the 60s, is women being forced into marriages in order to simply survive. It was a necessity. So now after that, the ladies, they didn't have to get married unless they actually wanted to, which many of them do, or many of them did. But they were able to be a little bit more choosy because they weren't tied to one person due to being able, having it necessary to survive due to their finances and children. And so now all of that triggered a lot of right wingers. Oh, and they've been salty about it ever since. That's why so many of them pine for the days where women were basically stuck with them and forced to play housemaid. Why do you think that we see chuds like Nick Fuentes, Matt Walsh, say like, we really need to bring back that arranged marriages. That's what we need to do. We need to, force women to have sex with men. That's what we need to do. We need to bring that back. Understand that this has never been about the family. It's never been about children and, being able to have a good, environment for children to grow up in. No, this isn't about any of that. It is about controlling women. Taking away reproductive rights from women is an attempt to control women. Taking away their ability to be able to, get out of a violent or a bad marriage. Well, that's trying to control women, trying to keep them under the thumb of men in those bad relationships. And now, even when Vance goes back and correctly talks about the decline of manufacturing. So look, yes, in the Midwest, when he talks about the decline of manufacturing, when he talks about how that has hurt a lot of families and has hurt a lot of men, that's true. That's true. But the right-wing framing on this, and I'm always frustrated about it. Their framing is that it really frames men as snowflakes. It frames men as weak. Oh, men, once they lost the ability to out-earn their partners or be the only source of income for a household, they just lost their way. They lost their place, and they just can't figure it out. No, men aren't fucking stupid. What a lowly opinion you have of men. No, men are fucking kings, okay? We are. And you know what? Women are amazing as well. And guess what? We all have our unique talents and abilities and things that we bring to a relationship. But it only works if both people are invested in it. Instead, what these regressives want to do is they want to bring it back to a point where women have to depend financially on a man. That's not a relationship. That's not a good relationship. That's a shitty relationship. That's a relationship where you are not there because you actually like and want to be with that person. No, it's there because I have to eat tomorrow. And you know what? I can't do that if I'm not married and slaving away for this guy that I don't really care about. And the insecurity. These guys are so incredibly insecure with themselves. That's why they want to force women into these relationships. That's why they want to take away their rights. Because they think that if women have rights, that they'll never be chosen. That no one would want to be with them and no one will want to spend time with them. Because they don't believe in themselves. They have such a low opinion of themselves and low opinion of men. It's disgusting. You disgust me, JD Vance. What a disgusting person. Gross. All right. There's more, by the way, to get into more detail, right? So now, instead of encouraging men to learn new trades, to become entrepreneurs, to share the responsibility of bringing in income with their spouses and to be a team, a real team, or to even talk about policy changes that would help. Hey, if you want to live a traditional lifestyle where the woman stays home and takes care of the kids and the man goes out and works, well, okay, why don't you raise wages? So that men can earn more. And again, I don't have a problem if that's the way you want to live, because I believe in freedom. I believe in choices. You don't. You don't believe in freedom. You're a goddamn authoritarian. That's what you are. You just want to control people's lives. That they want, the so-called good old days, right? Where again, women were forced to stay in the home, cook and clean, wash the socks, take care of the babies. If you want to do that, that's fine. It's a free country. But to think that you can sit there and make decisions for every woman, no, no deal. That's the real problem with the right wing. They want to make you live a certain way and control your life by stripping women of freedom. As for unhappy marriages, let's be clear. Not everybody's going to get along. Not every marriage is a good marriage. And you should have the option as a man or a woman to get out of those marriages with a partner that you don't get along with. And sometimes people will grow apart. Marriages do fail, and it does happen. And I think it's worse for everyone, if there are two very unhappy people that are forced into a marriage to live with each other in the same house. That's bad for the kids. That's bad for everyone involved. I have personal experience in that department. I grew up with an abusive parent and two people that should have never been married. So, JD Vance, you could fuck all the way off with your bullshit. Now, there's a difference, by the way, between going through a hard time as a married couple, which all married couples do, or many do, unless you're rich, financially, for example, or even that through illness in this country where we brutalize people who get ill by not having universal health care. There's a difference between all of that and actually dealing with an abusive partner. And so, look, I'm married. I love my wife. We've been through a lot together, hard financial times, good times. If she got ill, I'd absolutely be there for her. And I think most people would choose to do the same with their own partners. But there's a difference between being able to make that choice and not having a choice at all. Right-wingers want to take away your choice. They want to leave you with a possibly abusive partner because for some ridiculous notion of sanctity in marriage. And again, he's actually wrong. When he talks about how it's a contract, it actually is. It is a government contract that gives you, both partners, certain benefits. Example, taxes. But you also have things like, I don't know, being able to make medical decisions for your partner, things like that. So yes, it is a contract that you enter into. Now, that's different from the religious marriage, which again, there should be a separation of church and state here. But a lot of people will combine those two terms in those two things. But no, in order to get married, you don't have to have religion involved at all. At all. And so what J.D. Vance is referring to, that sanctity, again, only has to do with religion and should have no bearing on the legality of any sort of legal partnership. One more thing, abuse. Abuse happens in relationships more than it should. And a lot of people, they don't report it. They don't, again, they don't report it, like kind of like sexual assault example. It's deeply personal, right? And that's why it is deeply personal. Sometimes spouses will lie and cover for the abuse that they've received for the other spouse to try to not get them in trouble. There are a lot of complications, a lot of factors in this that, again, there's emotion involved. It gets messy. That said, what isn't messy and what's very, very clear is the reports on domestic violence. Okay. Now, J.D. Vance says, well, there's an explosion in domestic violence reports. So that doesn't actually mean that there's more domestic violence. That just might actually mean that people are feeling more comfortable reporting it because there is more support now for victims of domestic abuse. In a way, it's like conservatives freaking out about more LGBTQ people that are coming out and identifying, coming out of the closet, so to speak. But there's not more of them than there were before. They always existed. They're just more comfortable being out now than they were before. But this gets back to the overall goal of the right wing. J.D. Vance and the rest of them want to shove everything back under the rug, sweep everything under the rug, and shove everyone back in the closet. Because ignorance is bliss. It's so simple. Just erase gay people and force women into marriages where, they're getting abused, and we're just going to turn a blind eye. That's what we want. Well, again, they said it. They admitted it. When they said when they said make America great again, this is exactly what they meant by it. And when people tell you who they are, you should believe them.